Welcome to EUPrivacyForAll Session38 on GDPR certification, Article 39. Let's summarize quickly what were European Parliament and EU Council proposals. On its side, European Parliament suggested that supervisory authorities could grant certification for a reasonable fee. Such a process would be voluntary, affordable, available, transparent, and not unduly burdensome. In this frame, supervisory authorities and EDPB would cooperate, and the supervisory authorities may accredit specialized third-party auditors. The European Data Protection Seal would be of a maximum validity of 5 years. EDPB would have to hold an electronic register and may also certify that data protection enhancing technical standard would comply with the regulation. On its side, EU Council targeted Member States, EDPB and the Commission to encourage, particularly at an union level, the establishment of certification mechanisms, but also seals and marks, for the purpose of demonstrating compliance to the regulation. It was also stressed that the needs of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises shall be taken into account. The seal could be used to demonstrate the existence of appropriate safeguards for data controllers or processors that are not subject to the regulation. A certification does not reduce the responsibility of the controller or the processor for compliance, according to EU Council. Moreover, a certification shall be issued by certification bodies or by the competent supervisory authorities on the basis of criteria that would be approved, depending on the case, by the supervisory authority or the EDPB. Finally, controller and processor will commit to provide all information and access to the processing. The maximum period of certification would be 3 years, and as for European Parliament, EDPB would have a register of certification, mechanisms and seals publicly available. The final draft of Article 39 retains that Member States, supervisory authorities, the European Data Protection Board and the Commission shall encourage, in particular at union level, the establishment of data protection certification mechanisms, seals and marks, for the purpose mainly of demonstrating compliance, and specific needs of micro, small and medium-sized enterprise are taken into account. This is totally in line with EU Council proposal. Moreover, certification mechanisms, seals or mark, would demonstrate the existence of appropriate safeguards for controllers and processors not being subject to this regulation. They will have to make binding and enforceable commitments. A certification does not reduce the responsibility of the controller or the processor for compliance. The certification shall also be voluntary and available, as suggested by European Parliament. A certification issued by certification bodies or the competent supervisory authority on the basis of criteria approved either by the supervisory authority or by EDPB would be granted. In case it would be an EDPB certification, it would be named the European Data Protection Seal, as suggested by European Parliament. The controller or processor shall provide in this frame all information requested and also access to its processing activities. The certification would be of a maximum of 3 years, as suggested by the Council, and could be renewed. It shall also be withdrawn if not meeting requirements laid down initially. EDPB, finally, will collect all certification mechanisms and data protection seals and marks in a register and make this register publicly available. Other key provisions in GDPR make really clear that certification mechanisms are built to allow data subjects to quickly assess the level of data protection of products and services provided. The guidance for the implementation of appropriate measures taken by controllers or processors could be demonstrated with approved certifications. It is stressed also that specifically processors using approved certification could demonstrate compliance with the obligations of the controller. Let's stress here that the adherence to approved certification mechanism are mainly focused on demonstrating compliance. It is highly visible in lots of different provisions in GDPR. On their side, each supervisory authority shall encourage the establishment of certification mechanisms, seals and marks, periodically review those certifications, publish the criteria for accreditation, and conduct such an accreditation. They will have also to act in order to withdraw certification if it does not meet the initial criteria. So finally, they will be able, as supervisory authorities, to accredit certification bodies, but also issue certifications and approve criteria of certification. Finally, EDPB will also have to encourage the establishment of such certification mechanisms, seals and marks, and carry out accreditation at an EU level. Sanctions, that is to say, administrative fine and infringements, could be based on an assessment of adherence to approved certification mechanisms. Currently, the directive does not lay down any provision regarding approved certification mechanisms, seals or marks. What should accountable data controllers and processors get prepared for? First, they should know they can use certification mechanisms, seals and marks for the purpose of demonstrating compliance with the regulation. Second, bear in mind that EU Commission, EDPB, Member States and DPA will specifically check specific needs of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. Controllers and processors that are not subject to this regulation still can demonstrate using certification mechanisms that appropriate privacy safeguards are implemented. Certification remains totally voluntary and transparent. Certification does not reduce the responsibility of the controller or the processor for compliance, and controllers and processors shall pay attention to the criteria elaborated by the European Data Protection Board at an EU level. Under the name of European Data Protection Seal, the common certification will elaborate on those criteria. The certification granted will be of a maximum of 3 years, but will be renewable. Controllers and processors will have to commit to provide all information and access to its processing activities necessary to conduct the certification procedure. And EDPB will hold a public register on certification mechanisms, seals and marks. So the question we have now in mind is about criteria to be used by the EDPB and by national authorities.